In 2009, the pinnacle of the franchise, Pokémon Gold and Silver, were remade for the Nintendo DS, and with the remakes came some added content that they decided to throw in, one of which ended up being strangely disturbing. The event is triggered if you visit the Ruins of Alph with a special event Pokémon who can only be acquired in a one-time in-store giveaway. A researcher bumps into you and brings you down into the ruins, where he says something feels different, and the Unone hieroglyphics on the wall seem to be staring at him. If you aren't familiar, Unone are these mysterious Pokémon that represent letters of the alphabet. This is where things get weird. You suddenly hear a high-pitched laughter, and the screen fades to black. You'll next find yourself in a dark temple, supposedly far off from anywhere you've been before. After some exposition, you're brought back to the temple and asked to choose one of the ancient circles on the ground. Upon choosing, your Pokémon will float to the center of the room, and a horde of Unone will swirl around you as you're engulfed in a huge light. This animation is graphically not like anything else we've seen in these games, giving you this surrealistic vibe. But it gets weirder from there. Creepy Gregorian music starts playing, and we're taken through a slideshow of the creation of the universe using real-life photographs. I've always found the use of mixed mediums to be creepy, and this is no exception. Seeing man-made cities from our world just comes as a shock after looking at an entire game's worth of this one specific art style. The event ends with you being given this egg, containing a new Pokémon, before reappearing in the ruins, and the researcher explains that you just disappeared and reappeared before his eyes. The mystery deepens. While we're still on the Ruins of Alph, they are pretty creepy even under the game's normal circumstances. Once you get near the ruins, you can start to pick up a strange signal on your radio. It's so broken and distorted, it sounds more like part of some Pokémon creepypasta than an actual part of the game. The player is tasked with completing these ancient block puzzles, each depicting an ancient prehistoric Pokémon. The completion of these puzzles opens up a trap door, leading to the underground tombs where Unone will start to randomly appear. The question is, who could have built this place all those millions of years ago, and for what purpose? Even after completing everything, the mystery of the ruins is never fully solved. Another creepy location in the series is N's room in Pokémon Black and White. N was an orphan adopted by the evil Team Plasma, and one of the more interesting characters in the series. He poses the idea of liberating Pokémon from their trainers as an animal rights type of thing, but it turns out that his superiors were just lying and trying to separate other Pokémon trainers from their Pokémon so that they would have all of the power in the world. Seeing N's childhood room shows how manipulated he was. They spent tons of money to keep him occupied, but everything in the room is there to keep him entertained by himself, without the need for any friends. He has a train set, a basketball hoop, dartboard, even his own half-pipe. You can go back to the room in the sequels, which take place 2 years after Team Plasma betrays N. Now the room seems to have been destroyed, most likely by N, in a rage after discovering his faux father's true intentions and how he was used. The music box in the room also seems to have been broken, as the soundtrack sounds much more sinister. Perhaps the creepiest part about N's room, though, can be seen if you examine the half-pipe. The character observes that it's been damaged by the scratches of Pokémon. Did N's father give him potentially harmful Pokémon as part of his plan to turn N against the union shared by Pokémon and their trainers? We never fully find out, but it looks grim based on the evidence presented in the game. While we're on the topic of harmful Pokémon, there are many that look innocent, but actually have extremely dark descriptions. Others are just downright terrifying.
Cofagrigus. It has been said that they swallow those who get too close and turn them into mummies. They like to eat gold nuggets. They pretend to be elaborate coffins to teach grave robbers. Their bodies are covered in pure gold.
So this Pokemon, Cofagrigus, literally has been known to swallow adults whole. It makes you think twice as the 14-year-old protagonist of these games whenever you encounter one while exploring. Who knew that your adventure could come to a close at any moment? Literally. Let's look at another.
Gengar. To steal the life of its target, it slips into the prey's shadow and silently waits for an opportunity.
It's pretty unnerving to consider that something could be watching you from your own shadow, especially if you're the Pokemon Clefable. Many have theorized that Gengar is actually the dark version, or at least the shadow of Clefable, haunting it wherever it goes. Given their identical shape, it's possible that the name Gengar is short for doppelganger, because Gengar is a ghostly double of Clefable. If such a thing exists, it's chilling to think about what else is out there. Do humans have a shadow entity following them as well? Moving on, Sandygast is a ghost/ground type Pokemon, resembling a sandcastle from Pokemon Sun and Moon. Its evolution is called Palisand, and they can be found on the sunny shores of Hano Beach. Sandygast's entry reads as follows.
It takes control of anyone who puts a hand in its mouth, and so it adds to the accumulation of its sand-mound body.
That's creepy enough on its own, but let's look at the description of the evolved form, Palisand.
Buried beneath the castle are masses of dried-up bones from those whose vitality it has drained.
These tropical beaches don't seem quite so bright and cheerful after learning that. It gets worse when you consider the context. Hano Beach is a public beach right next to two huge resorts. The place is covered with unsuspecting tourists, and young children can be found playing at the resort. Don't fall asleep on that beach chair, because your kid could end up as a pile of bones beneath these sunny shores if you aren't careful. Not all of the creepy Pokemon are ghost types, however.
Beedrill. Beedrill is extremely territorial. No one should ever approach its nest. This is for their own safety. If angered, they will attack in a furious swarm.
That may not sound that scary, but let's not forget that Beedrill are 3-foot-tall, 65-pound poisonous bugs with giant stingers for hands. I think the wasps in our world are already scary enough as it is. I do not need a swarm of child-sized Beedrill coming after me with their glowing red eyes. The thought of that is enough to make me never want to go outside again. With that being said, let's take a break from the creepy Pokédex entries. I think we could all use one, and go inside some of the creepy buildings that the world of Pokémon has to offer. Take Cinnabar Mansion, for example. It's the burned down, well, they call it burned down, but I guess it's just burned, mansion of a researcher who has been studying the legendary Pokemon Mew and attempting to replicate its DNA. His journal entries can be found in the mansion. That is, if you make it past the mad scientists and burglars who have come to scavenge the remains. The journals tell of approximately a 2-year period where researchers found and captured Mew, cloned it, and gave birth to Mewtwo. Mewtwo became far too powerful for them to handle, destroyed the mansion, and fled into the wild, eventually settling in at Cerulean Cavern. Mewtwo is the strongest Pokemon in the game, so much so that only the Pokemon League champion is permitted entry into the cavern. As for the researcher, I think it's pretty obvious what happened to him. In our real world, with emerging technologies such as cloning and AI, it's scary to think about these things growing more potent than mankind, and what type of damage could possibly incur. The most universally recognized creepy location in the Pokémon world, of course, is Lavender Town, with its creepy, headache-inducing music frequencies, ghost hands resting on your shoulder, and no, these aren't all ghost-type Pokémon. Some of them are the real ghosts of deceased Pokémon. The rest of the horror community here on YouTube has done a fine job of covering Lavender Town, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it does tie into the next topic, death of Pokémon. One theory says after you defeat Blue on the SS Anne, since he didn't have access to a Pokemon Center, he was unable to heal his Raticate's injuries properly in time. The next time you see Blue in the Pokemon Tower, the final resting place of Pokemon, he makes a comment wondering why your character is at the Pokemon Tower, seeing as how none of your Pokemon look dead. When you proceed to battle him, the Raticate is missing from his party. I guess you could say that you eradicated the competition. Okay, that's horrible. Another haunted house location can be found in the 4th generation of games, where you can find an abandoned house deep in the Eterna Forest, known as the Old Chateau. Many of the characters you meet in that area of the game express fear and anxiety about the Old Chateau. Even the gym leader, supposedly the strongest trainer in that nearby city, refused to go any further than the front gate. Inside, you'll find an array of ghost-type Pokemon, and while there don't seem to be any actual ghosts of dead Pokemon here, what you'll find may actually be more disturbing. From time to time, you can spot the ghosts of the little girl who once lived there and her butler floating around the manor. The girl can be seen in the next room over if you go into one of the bedrooms, and the butler can be seen occasionally on the far side of the dining room. It's not possible to reach and talk to either of them, but they lack the same walking animations that all of the other characters have in these games, and instead just float across the screen. There's also a book you can find in the library. All of the pages are blank other than this one. Something so peculiar should make off with the mother. We don't know much about the family who lived in the old chateau, but it seems like after some dark spirit made off with the mother, something happened to the daughter and the butler, causing the father to flee the mansion and never return. We see another human ghost character in Pokémon Black and White. When traveling across an area known as the Marvelous Bridge, you may occasionally encounter a young girl staring off the side of the bridge. If you approach this girl, she will simply disappear, frightening the man standing to her right. Upon further investigation, an old woman will reveal that a young girl with an Abra used to play around in the area before the bridge had been built. We don't learn anything else until the sequels, taking place 2 years later. The player will stumble upon a location simply referred to as Strange House, on the opposite side of the mountain that Marvel Bridge is located on. Inside the house, you'll find levitating objects and random furniture thrown about most of the rooms. In the library, there are several books pertaining to the link between Pokémon and nightmares. In reading each of these books, they explain about Cresselia, the anti-nightmare Pokémon, Darkrai, the nightmare Pokémon, Drowzee, the dream-eating Pokémon, Hypno, the sleep-inducing Pokémon, and some of the moves that these Pokémon may use to haunt the nightmares of Pokémon, or people. Exploring the house will lead you to meet the ghost girl when she just appears in front of you, only this time she'll speak to you. You can encounter her again in a different part of the house, where she now has new dialogue. Finally, if you go into the bedroom, she appears one more time. With that, she gives you the lunar wing and disappears. You can use it to summon Cresselia. It could be speculated that the girl was trying to summon Cresselia herself, because some of her dreams were haunted by the evil Darkrai, possibly driving her to the breaking point and death. That would explain why she had so many books about Pokemon, dreams, and nightmares. There's another ghost later on that I'd like to discuss, but first let's look at some more disturbing Pokédex entries. I'll start with the aforementioned Drowzee.
Drowsy. It remembers every dream it eats. It rarely eats the dreams of adults because children's are much tastier. If your nose becomes itchy while you are sleeping, it's a sure sign that Drowsy is standing above your pillow and trying to eat your dream through your nostrils.
The idea of waking up to see this horrifying thing attempting to suck your dream out through your nose is terrifying. Not to mention that Dream Eater is one of the most devastating psychic type moves in the game, powerful enough at times to bring down a behemoth Snorlax. Getting your dream eaten sounds like one of the most painful and scarring experiences imaginable, but the horror does not end there. Drowzee evolves into Hypno.
Hypno. It carries a pendulum-like device. There was once an incident in which it took away a child it hypnotized.
So not only do these things look like a creepy old predator, but they're actually known to come into children's bedrooms at night, hypnotize them, and lead them back out into the wild, into their nest, where several Hypnos and Drowzees feast upon the children's dreams. Imagine waking up as a child and being in a dark cave, not knowing where you are or how you got there, and being surrounded by an entire horde of these nightmare-inducing creatures who want to kidnap you and devour the thoughts that occupy your head during a dream. The next one is a personal favorite from the 7th generation of games.
Mimikyu, a lonely Pokémon. It conceals its terrifying appearance beneath an old rag so it can get closer to people and other Pokémon. Its actual appearance is unknown. A scholar who saw what was under its rag was overwhelmed by terror and died from the shock.
So this is a Pokemon that nobody has actually seen the true form of, except for that one guy. Apparently, Mimikyu disguises itself as a Pikachu because it's seen that Pikachu is the most popular Pokemon among humans and it wants to be loved by its human trainers. Ah, How adorable. Until you remember the fact that underneath that cloth, what lies beneath the disguise, the true form of Mimikyu, is something so disturbing, so obscene, so terrifying, that the very sight of it will literally scare the trainer to death. But at least the disguise is cute, right? No. In Pokemon, there's an alternate color palette for each species, which are extremely rare, called shinies. Look at the shiny form of Mimikyu. That's not shiny at all. It looks like it belongs in a Zack Snyder movie. Wouldn't want to run into one of those in a dark alley. Oh yeah, that's the other creepy thing about Mimikyu. You can only find it in one place, an abandoned convenience store at the end of a broken, forgotten road. When you first meet Mimikyu, you go into a secret back room where your camera turns on all on its own. You can then examine the cold, dark little room and discover that it's plastered with all these joyful pictures and magazine clippings of Pikachu. So it seems like Mimikyu is either obsessed with Pikachu or absolutely hates them, which is creepy either way you look at it. Then somehow, Mimikyu just appears behind you and initiates a battle. I'm just glad to be the player character in that situation and not Pikachu. Imagine you are Pikachu. You go into this room and find all of these photos of yourself plastered around, ones you don't even remember being taken. Then you turn around and someone in a costume resembling you is standing there, blocking the only exit. While Pikachu and Mimikyu do share some similarities, another interesting pair are Cubone and Shedinja.
Cubone. It always wears the skull of its dead mother, so no one has any idea what its hidden face looks like. Shedinja. A discarded bug shell that came to life. Peering into the crack on its back is said to steal one's spirit.
Both of these Pokemon hide inside the skeleton of another Pokemon in their evolutionary line, refuse to show their faces, and undoubtedly have some personal issues. Here's another Pokemon that looks like it would make a great pet, but upon further investigation, you may want to stay miles and miles from it.
Esper. The organ that emits its intense psychic power is sheltered by its ears to keep power from leaking out. It has enough psychic energy to blast everything within 300 feet of itself, but no control over its power.
The eyes on this Pokemon are already a little unnerving, and the teeth don't really help. But if you try to play with this Pokemon's ears, the look that it gives you will be burned into your memory in the worst way possible. The sound you just heard comes from this Pokemon, Drifloon.
Drifloon. Stories go that it grabs the hands of small children and drags them away to the afterlife. It dislikes heavy children.
This Pokemon might look like a balloon you would pay too much money for at a fair, but it's actually a ghost-type Pokemon, and like many of the creepy Pokemon on this list, it abducts children. What is it with Game Freak and child abduction anyway? I think we've all had the childhood moment of letting go of a beloved balloon. Maybe we should just be glad that the balloon lets go of us. Before I get to what I see as the creepiest thing to have happened in the Pokemon franchise, let me tell you about something that may have not been intentionally creepy, but I found rather off-putting anyways. There is an area called Mount Moon, which you go through many times in the first 2 generations of games. What I never realized for the longest time was that going through Mount Moon Square on a Monday night in Pokemon Gold and Silver resulted in a special event. So when I accidentally stumbled upon this and heard this strange music in a location that I had rolled through many times with no music change, I was a bit shook. I'll just roll the clip. The noises that they make are so disturbing. It's like there's just some kind of dark undertone. Then there's the way that the rock just appears there, which is almost like a jump scare. I guess the story goes that the Clefairy come from outer space, and the rock is a meteor that they summon with their dance. I had played this game for so long before discovering that little scene that it just seemed so unreal to me when it finally happened. Alright, it looks like we've reached the #1 scariest thing in all of Pokemon. I'll just set it up for you a little bit. In Pokemon X and Y, there's a lot to explore in the biggest city, Lumiose City. It's probably the best part of the game. You can rollerblade around, the music is great, and there's plenty to explore. Then this happens. Yep. Then she just disappears. It's never explained. You never see her again. Nobody on the internet has any idea who this girl is or why this happens. I was kind of tired and dozing off when it happened to me, so I think that it shocked me even more. I kind of thought that I had dozed off and had a weird dream. The music stops. The way she just slides across the screen is very unsettling. I actually had to look it up online to make sure it was real. After all, maybe I had one of those fabled haunted cartridges. Honestly, the only reason I can even imagine this is in the game is as a response to the growing genre of Pokemon creepypasta online. It kind of seems like something that would happen in one of those stories, where the cartridge is hacked or haunted and the game behaves in some strange or creepy way. Maybe the developers put this in to bait people into writing their own stories and theories as sort of a viral marketing campaign built into the game. If that's the case, then I guess it worked, because here I am talking about it in front of you people right now. By the way, I may do more videos on creepy things in non-horror media if you're interested in seeing them, so let me know by answering this poll right here. I also haven't covered even half the creepy things in Pokemon, so if you want me to do a part 2, leave a comment and tell me to do a part 2. And if you're new to the channel, I'm known as CZ. I make horror films and I do these narrations, so here's the deal I'll make with you. If you're interested in seeing creepy stuff like you just saw, I can get you more of that. All you have to do is 2 things. First, subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week. Second, ring that victory bell for notifications. If you don't ring the bell, you won't be able to see any of my videos. That's just how YouTube works now. So if that all sounds good to you, then I will see you in the next one, assuming we both survive.